This presentation challenges dominant narratives that equate safety with military power and explores pathways toward real security rooted in peace building, economic justice, and community care. You cannot simultaneously prepare for war and peace, Albert Einstein. Einstein's words remain powerfully relevant. When we dedicate the majority of our resources to preparing for war, what does that say about our commitment to peace? This is a fundamental contradiction we'll examine today. Setting the stage. July 4th is steeped in patriotic imagery, parades, flags, fighter jet flyovers, but often leaves unexamined the underlying glorification of militarism. These spectacles mask deeper systemic choices to prioritize war over wellness, weapons over wisdom. The myth of military security. The US spent $886 billion on defense in 2024, over half of our discretionary budget. This isn't just about national defense. It's about an entrenched military industrial complex that thrives on perpetual conflict, diverting funds from housing, healthcare, and education. Missouri as a microcosm. Missouri offers a clear example. A $3.1 billion contract for Boeing's F-15EXs in St. Louis was awarded while our schools remain underfunded and hospitals close. The profits flow up, the pain trickles down. The peace dividend never comes to our neighborhoods. Who benefits from militarism? Let's be clear, militarism is profitable. Corporations like Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin thrive. Politicians backed by these interests push defense budgets upward, and media narratives normalize it all, rarely showing the human cost of this imbalance. Who pays the price? Marginalized communities face increased policing and surveillance. Veterans suffer PTSD and inadequate care. Communities abroad are devastated by drone strikes and destabilizing interventions. Militarism creates trauma, not safety. What does real safety look like? Real safety isn't a missile defense system. It's a safe home, clean water, health support, and resilient communities. When we imagine security, we realize that justice, not dominance, will keep us safe. What are alternative visions of security? We can build something better. We can use peace building, which replaces the violence with dialogue. Economic justice ensures people aren't punished for being poor. Climate justice builds resilience in the face of global crisis. And transformative justice moves us beyond policing to community repair. Campaigns for change. Move the money. Peace Economy Project supports efforts like Move the Money and Just Transition, redirecting funds from war to well-being. Defense workers have skills that can serve life, not death. With vision and investment, we can support that shift. The role of patriotic dissent. Patriotism is not blind allegiance. It's the courage to speak up when our country strays from its values. On July 4th, let's celebrate freedom, not just from tyranny, but from fear, violence, and neglect. Calls to action. As I introduce our upcoming speakers, I want you to keep in mind on ways you can act. I urge you to talk to your representatives, host community conversations, build mutual aid networks. The peace economy begins with you. And each of us choosing justice over militarism, healing over harm. Security is not the absence of threats, but the presence of justice. And thank you for your time in listening to that introduction. I will now introduce our panelists. I am pleased to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Purushottam Bandar, Senior Fellow at the Peace Economy Project. Dr. Bandar is an expert in peace building, post-conflict transitions, and economic justice. His current research focuses on the global arms trade and its impact on community development and democracy. He'll share his insights on how militarized spending diverts resources from the kinds of investments that actually make our community safe and strong. Please welcome Dr. Purushottam Bandar.
Thank you, Katrina, for such warm introduction. Let me share my screen. Is this visible?
We can see it.
Yes, great. Thank you. So it's really an honor to be here on the Independence Day celebration to discuss the topic that is profoundly relevant to the very meaning of our nation's founding principle, which is national security. As we celebrate this Independence Day, it's crucial to reflect on how we define and pursue security in the 21st century. Today, I would like all of you to delve into the United States' substantial military spending and explore the profound opportunities we might be missing to build a truly peaceful economy and peaceful future for all the citizens. My aim through this presentation is to encourage critical re-evaluation of our national priorities, moving beyond conventional notions of power to embrace more holistic vision of peace and well-being. So this is the brief outline of the presentation today. I will be talking about scale of the US military spending, compare it with the other next economies. Then we will try to understand the spending through the perpetual spending cycle and one of the very interesting budgetary chicken game. Then I will discuss something about what we are missing out with spending on military through the opportunity cost on 3 cases. Then we will try to debunk the myths that only force can be established peace. And then we will try to build a true definition of security. So to truly grasp the magnitude of US military spending, it is very essential to break down where these colossal sums are allocated. So as Katrina has mentioned, US Department of Defense budget alone amounts to more than 850 billion in the total. Along with that, there are some aggregations that we need to consider because those aggregations are related to the other departments, say, for example, Department of Energy, wherein funding for the maintenance and development of nation's nuclear weapons arsenal. Also, we should think about Department of Veteran Affairs, wherein the large portion of sum goes to lifeline, medical care, and disability benefits. Also, there is a funding allocated to Homeland Security, which is the funding for the border security as well as the domestic security functions. And also, we need to accommodate international military assistance. That total aggregation brings us to close to 1.5 trillion for last year. So I tried to make the comparison for the next 9 economies and see how it how US has surpassed all next 9 economies through this. Yes. So let's go back and talk about military spending cycle, wherein I tried to grab some information from cost of war project from Brown University. The first stage is when you introduce the military spending. There is a initial military expenditure budget introduced. Then the money flows into the military contractors, private companies that builds weapons, ships, and technologies. They make major profits from these contracts. And if we consider this, with those profits, these companies grow into the influence. They hire lobbyists, fund think tanks, and become political force of their own. What that takes them to, then they lobby Congress, policymakers, and arguing even more defense funding is required. Often they frame it as a essential for national security and jobs. Now, you could see that eventually the military spending is seen as politically untouchable because it is too much entrenched into the economy, and it becomes uncuttable as well. So there is no cutting in the spending or the budget. And this is how the perpetual cycle of military spending we can see. So this is not just one decision, it's a system that we need to understand. It's like all systems, it rewards some behaviors and makes some others harder. So we will try to understand how this budget making dimension is can be seen through the budgetary chicken game. All of you might have understood or heard somewhere the chicken game. So this is not with the cards or dice, but with the money that we are thinking about. It's a national budget. There are two teams we need to consider here. The first one is Team Hawks. They prioritize military spending. They are the group of powerful, centralized, and well-funded coalition. It includes Department of Defense, major defense contractors, the military industrial complex. We can add that as well. And also their allies in Congress who sit on the key armed resources appropriations committees. And their primary objective is to maximize the budget. Second team here is need advocates. They want more money for things like healthcare, education, housing, and infrastructure. This is the diffused group, less centralized coalition of educators, healthcare providers, climate scientists, student groups, progressive politicians, or peace advocates like us. Their objectives are varied, but center on increasing investment in domestic social programs. So these two teams have choices to make here in this game. So first choice is to swerve. This is nothing but the compromise and share the money. And second choice is to drive straight, no compromise, refuse to back down. So when we think about what are the political outcomes, let me give some background. There are two different political landscapes that we need to think about. One is credibility of threat. So Team Hawks has a threat to drive straight is immensely credible because the political cost of being seen as weak on defense is catastrophic in American politics. And any politician who vote against any of the policies that could be significantly cut in immediately vulnerable to attack. And they often pose this as a endanger to the American lives. And also there is another dimension to it. There is a diffuse nature of the opposition, which is the team need advocates, which is less credible because of while the government is uh, doing some policy changes, they have it is easier for politicians to see that they would accept the suboptimal budget for the social things. So we could see that there is a predictable outcome that we can see. Only Team Hawks wins here because uh, of the political consideration that we just discussed. The budget is overwhelmingly favors military priorities, and some concessions are made to human needs to make the deal palatable. Also, the budgets are not just the numbers, they are the result of tough political games that we need to understand here. Who compromises and who drives affects the what gets funded. If one side always gives in, their priorities stay underfunded. That's why peace advocates like us are struggling to get things achieved. So with that, I will like to come to the opportunity cost. So Let's talk about often overlooked cost of military spending, not just in dollars, but in lost opportunities for our society. Here we are discussing about education. As we have seen that military spending budget surged from 2001, there is a parallel crisis emerged, which is a student debt loan. You will see the graph in the data. And this is amounted to the whopping close to 1.8 trillion. And if you look at the graph, uh, it's not the budget that we should think about. It's about the debt burden that students are facing. Because of this, students or the young professional community is not going to establish their lives. They are very delayed in entrepreneurial spirits or delayed in their establishments. So if we compare, that's a really stunning point that I wanted to bring here. The lifetime cost of one weapon program, say for example F-35, could wipe out the entire student debt crisis that we have in hand. Just one program, one jet system cost more than lifetime burden of the student's loan across the entire country. Now we'll think about some new figures, some trade-offs using 100 billion out of 850 billion that we are talking about. If we could see that 100 billion as a fraction of military spending as opportunity cost, what we could have achieved. This table explores three ways that we could reallocate the 100 billion and the real world transformation it could create. With just one investment, we could fund 2 million students tuition every single year. That's 2 million lives transformed. Think about it. Less student debt, more graduates, and a stronger economy. Similarly, we can think about hiring 1 million new teachers across the country. That means smaller class sizes, more individual support, and the education system where no child is left behind because the teachers are stretched too thin. Similarly, we can think about pre through K to 15 million children. And these are the estimates that I tried to match with through the data from NCES, College Board and US Bureau of Labor Statistics. I tried to look at how was the average salary of the teacher and how much the 100 billion could accommodate, how many teachers it could accommodate, similarly, something to that. So this is about how we can do with the fraction of this thing. Think about job creation. When we talk about military spending, one common argument is that it creates jobs and strengthen the economy. But this slide asks us to dig it a little bit deeper and question whether the truly best use of resources. Because military spending, if we think, let's see, for example, this is a study conducted by Brown University, which is a very profound study on input-output method that economic model that microeconomic model that we think about. So look at this graph. Military spending creates about 11,200 jobs per billion spent. Whereas if we compare it to other three sectors, clean energy, healthcare, and education, this means that the same level of investment, a choice to fund education over the military would generate more than double the number of jobs. This data directly refutes the common political argument that high defense spending is essential for the economy to create jobs. From a purely economic stimulus perspective, it is one of the least effective uses of the public funds that we can think about. So beyond the social programs, the opportunity cost also exceeds the cost that long shadow of, over the ability that we can address the existential threats of climate change. It's a global challenge. I'm not saying that only US should think about it. It's a global challenge that demands shared investment and shared accountability. To think about, I was reading through the IPCC estimates. The expert estimate that to meet the global climate goal, about we need almost 2.4 trillion annually by 2035, and it's a again it's a worldwide price tag. It's not, and it's the shared responsibility. So with that, we can also think about how we can redirect the funding towards the fighting global climate actions. Now, I would like to bring you to the often myth that we think about, that the security or the peace can be achieved only through the force or military actions. Think about this. When it started post 2001, 9/11, the human cost since 2001, more than 900,000 people have lost their lives in conflicts. These are not just numbers, these are families, communities, and futures which are lost. Also, if we think about how much you spend on war-related activities, it's a big financial burden. And there is still no long-lasting peace is achieved or stability is achieved through these activities. Also, even it is getting even worse because the global terrorism has not been defeated yet, because we see terrorism activities across the globe, across the world. So what's the total takeaway that we have to think about? So security through force alone is a myth. True security comes not just from weapons, but from the resilience, justice, diplomacy, and investment in the human well-being. So to build the true definition of security, I would like to highlight four fundamental pillars that I could think about. First one is health security. If the COVID-19 pandemic taught us something, it's the one single virus can disrupt daily lives of the human more than that of the military threats. So robust public health systems, pandemic preparedness, and accessible care is necessary for national resilience. Second one is economic security. Stable livelihoods, affordable housing, job opportunities don't just boost the well-being, they reduce conflict, prevent extremism, and create durable peace. Also, fourth pillar is environmental security. Climate change, we just talked about it, is not just an environmental issue, it's a threat multiplier, making everything else more volatile. We should think about environmental security as well. Last one is educational security, which is very important because a society is the only as strong as its ability to learn, teach, and adopt. Because quality education available to all strengthens economies and fortifies the democracy and fuels innovation. So these pillars of human security prioritizes the fundamental needs, the rights of the individuals. I would like to leave with this very important, profound quote here. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. Under the cloud of threatening war, it's humanity hanging from us. So it's a very powerful quote from the President Eisenhower. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my perspectives on this.
Thank you, Dr. Bandari, for that powerful presentation. Our final speaker tonight is David Swanson, a renowned author, activist, and executive director of World Beyond War. David has spent years uncovering the hidden costs of war, both in lives and in lost opportunities for peace. He is a leading voice in the movement to abolish war and redirect public funds toward health, education, housing, and environmental sustainability. He will speak to us about the systemic nature of war profiteering and how ordinary people can push for a world without militarism. Please join me in welcoming David Swanson.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to share a PowerPoint slideshow. Let me know if it works.
It is working.
Great. Terrific remarks thus far from both of you. Smart guys, Einstein and Eisenhower. I sometimes wish they had acted a little more on their best quotes, but we all could say that about ourselves. Let me go to the first slide here. If we hope to preserve life on Earth, this, by the way, is a bunch of us in front of the Pentagon one day. If we hope to preserve life on Earth, the first step in rethinking national security on an Independence Day has probably got to be dropping that word, national. If humans destroy a livable environment, roast the Earth in fossil fuels, or start a nuclear winter, there is no nation where people can be expected to survive. Perhaps a nation will survive as a name carved in a piece of rubble or a flag planted in bloody dirt, but people and other living things won't be as lucky. And national competitions and hostilities give us wars and block cooperation on the environment, disease, and poverty. Nations and their so-called leaders give us poor, displaced people to blame and hate, while oligarchs rob us blind. Absolutely brilliant at dividing people. Nations are pretty bad at uniting people. Trump rallies and anti-Trump rallies look identical from a distance because they are both simply coded in US flags. But in each case, the message is, this flag does not belong to those idiots, it belongs to us. But who wants a war flag? Who can watch kids fascistically pledging their allegiance to it without embarrassment, even all these years after the proper hand position was altered to be less like that of the Nazis? There are so many things of beauty and wonder in this world. Shouldn't we leave behind war flags and war hymns? Doesn't your neighborhood or city or state or planet have a flag you like, even though it comes with no war machine? The third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner celebrates killing people who had just escaped from slavery. An earlier version also celebrated killing Muslims. The lyricist owned people as slaves and supported killings of African Americans. Trim and fix the song up into proper, updated, good patriotism, and it remains a celebration of war, of the mass killing of human beings, of a war of conquest that failed to take over Canada and instead got the White House burned. And during a battle, human beings died, but a flag survived. Yay, team. Step 2 is rethinking that word security we've already heard something about. These days, security means anything related to the war machine, the surveillance state, or a mysterious justification for various government or corporate abuses. But what would make you actually feel secure? Environmentally sustainable practices, the elimination of nuclear and other weaponry, investment in medicine and disinvestment in biological warfare, investment in developing actual intelligence, not artificial intelligence, and not spying or lawless thuggery under the title of intelligence. If the war on poverty had been a real war, they would have funded it. But can you imagine how secure you would feel if everyone could count on guaranteed education, transportation, workplace safety, recreation, and retirement? Almost everything that makes one secure is destroyed by what is done in the name of security, as well as everything that is done in the name of so-called defense. Step 3 is, of course, rethinking independence. The July 4th holiday comes out of a war that needlessly replaced powerful nonviolent action with violence to transfer control of a country from one wealthy white male elite to another, while opening up the West to genocide and fending off the threat of slavery's abolition. And now independence is an obsession, personal and national. But independence for a national government from international law, from this International Court of Justice in the picture, doesn't make any people free from fear or free from want. It just keeps the wars coming. The freedoms of the Bill of Rights are worth celebrating, but the practice of using them as excuses for wars that predictably strip them away is worth condemning. Recently, we were told that certain people needed to be grabbed and locked up or deported to be locked up because they had tattoos or a certain skin tone, and that in fact they were a gang that had invaded the United States as a foreign army, thereby justifying abuses that wars are used to justify. Very soon, people of all sorts and citizenships were being snatched by unidentified masked men and women. And if you thought or acted on the notion that letting unidentified masked men grab you was a bad idea, then the masked men would have a retroactive justification for grabbing you, namely the crime of resisting letting them grab you. Pretty soon, we learned that nobody actually cared about the gang. Some of us were old enough to hear echoes of George W. Bush not caring about bin Laden once his wars had been begun. Freedoms vanish in stages. They vanish on Guantanamo, and then in airports, and then in certain neighborhoods, and on college campuses, and then pretty much everywhere. First, they came for the foreigners. Xenophobia is the last remaining acceptable form of bigotry, which is very lucky when it comes to war making. They used to put real effort into their war lies. The State Department bribed and cajoled numerous agencies to get lies about nuclear weapons in Iraq. When it came to Iran last month, Trump just announced the opposite of what US agencies said. Either way, the propaganda lies in the question and not in its answer. Once you're asking whether some nation has nuclear weapons or not, you've accepted that the answer has some bearing on whether it's acceptable to bomb that nation's people, which means you're pretty far gone. This time they added a new question. How much destruction did the bombs do? Did they eliminate a non-existent nuclear weapons program or not? The answer that they didn't do enough damage seems to be the anti-war answer. Meanwhile, the fact that nuclear energy puts many nations close to having nuclear weapons, or that Israel and the United States have nuclear weapons, is of little interest. The notion that bombing Iran did huge amounts of damage to Iran's nuclear energy program is supposed to prove that, as in myths about Hiroshima and Nagasaki or the Iraq surge, you can end war with war, end resistance with belligerence. This is a dangerous belief system because when the US public demands an end to a war, the US government escalates that war and says it is ending it. And some government officials apparently believe that. The radical peace position, on the other hand, seems to be that if only Congress would wage these wars, they'd be okay and somehow legalized and made good and moral. Only in a nation conditioned to believe endless war making is inevitable can the big question become which branch of the government wages the wars. So what we need in order to move toward becoming secure is to free our minds and our institutions from war thinking, from war profiteering, from war planning. Instead of war spending, we don't need domestic spending. We need useful human and environmental spending everywhere. We need to work as global citizens who understand that nobody can be secure and free unless everybody is.
Thank you, David. Now we'd like to open the floor to your questions and reflections. What are your thoughts on the presentations this evening, and what possibilities are you imagining? You can either put your comments in the chat, or I believe you can raise your hands and I can use the button to raise your hand, not actually raise your hand because I can't see you, but and I could allow you to talk. So we have our first raised hand, Rick Spizak.
I just wanted to say I thought the program was excellent. And I think the more ways we can try to imagine a peaceful alternative to this constant warmongering is a good thing. We used to use teach-ins during the Vietnam War era to help people understand the real issues, not just what the jingoists and the war profiteers want us to believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Do we reply to Rick?
Yes, you can reply to Rick.
Well, I would just say great minds think alike, and a place I work called Roots Action has started up something called the Teach-In Network, and I'll put the link in the chat, teachinnetwork.org. We're doing teach-ins, real world, online, combined and otherwise. So yeah, let's do more of them.
Next, we have Rod Stevens.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. My question is, how do we get the religions to get out of war? I mean, religions traditionally have led us into what we believe, and what we believe to be true determines our behavior. And so if we can get the religions out of war, instead of putting our preachers at the front of our troops, sending them to war and saying, no, we believe in something different than war, then maybe we can turn help or assist in the whole movement of anti-militarization. What do you think about that type of thing, David? It's a little bit left field from the traditional ways. I'm thinking, well, how about if we no, we don't seem to involve spirituality at all in this argument. And I'm thinking, well, spirituality is probably the strongest way of turning the wheel around, turning the ship around. What do you feel about that, David?
I guess I'll go first. The fact is that a huge chunk of our best peace activists all over the world, and in particular in the United States, are religious and act on their religious beliefs, as is exactly the same thing true of the worst warmongers around the world and in the United States. Many of them are religious and are acting on their religious beliefs. Personally, not speaking for any organization, but for myself, if I were to succeed in abolishing war, I think religion would be next on my list. I would like to not only imagine no religion, but be rid of it, not by legal barring, but by outgrowing it. I think it facilitates very, very damaging habits that are very, very damaging when it comes to war propaganda, because many religions promote blind faith in authority, don't believe your own lying eyes, and promote the notion that there's something more important than life, or this life, as they call it, as if there were some other one. And I think these are hugely damaging notions. I also think, you know, the tradition I mentioned, the Bill of Rights, as the good thing that came out of the US Revolution, but has been a double-edged sword, this freedom of religion, because people in the United States believe passionately in the freedom to believe whatever the hell you want, regardless of facts. And this means, you know, spreading whatever nonsense belief and then being offended when someone challenges it with facts. And this too is hugely damaging. So, you know, more power to all our wonderful religious peace activists and efforts to get the Pope to go to Gaza and so forth. But I think we'd be better off outgrowing the stuff myself.
Thank you. Thank you for that, David. I do also think that, you know, religion does fare a good part of blame as far as advocating for war when especially when they should be on the other side of that. And I also would like to note that Peace Economy Project was founded by a nun, so I need to put that out there as well. If I don't see any questions right now, but I do have a question for Dr. Bandari. regarding the real world implications. I hate to call it this, but the big beautiful bill was just passed. And with that, I there was additional money for the defense industry in that bill, as well as cutting back loans, student loans, such that there is now a limit to the amount of money that a federal student loan can be. Dr. Bhandari, do you have any comment on what the future real world implications will look like with this passage of the new bill? Can you unmute?
That's a very relevant question for the today's concerns, because that the bill has passed now. It will attract so many perceptions from so many scholarly community. What I understood from the bill is about it is not going to take us somewhere towards the peace. It is definitely taking us away from the peace, because the kind of structure that they are trying to build with the new bill, because if you could see that they are going to fund it through giving some restrictions on the healthcare programs like Medicaid, which is very alarming, because if we want to have some profound healthcare system, we are definitely going away from it. And if you're asking about the future directions, it could be very chaotic to say right now to have these perspectives, but it is going to be very harder for the human beings, for the citizens, and those who are relying on the government programs or social programs. It could be very hard for them to get through their lives. It would be very difficult.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and by the way, I think there might be a question in the Q&A tab. The bill that was just passed is absolutely disastrous in terms of defunding everything good and moving huge amounts of more funding into militarism. But even worse are the promises just beaten out of every government of Europe and other NATO members at the NATO summit in The Hague, where they have promised 5% of their economies to war and weaponry. Last year the demand was 2%, right? This is adding another 150%. This is absolutely unprecedented. They are getting close to 100% of government spending devoted to war and weaponry in the part of the world that had done the best or close to the best job of investing in human and environmental needs. So this is taking everything the United States has done wrong and imposing it on Canada and Europe, rather than learning in the United States from what Europe had done right. And this is, largely against the will of the public, anti-democratic, imposed by this unelected, weapons dealing institution called NATO. And it's amazing that it's not a bigger story. The numbers are absolutely unfathomable. People, peace activists are asking me, is this a 5% increase? No, it is a 250%. This is just beyond belief. And this is why they talk about military spending now as a percentage of an economy, rather than a number of dollars, which goes up, or a number of dollars per capita, which goes up. And, either way, the US is at the top, except per capita, where Israel is at the top. They have turned military spending into a public service to be maximized. And the bigger your economy, the more of it you should do, even if you have to defund healthcare, schools, the environment, transportation, everything else. So, the United States is imposing even worse than it's doing in its big, awful bill on every other NATO member.
Thank you. And now we have a question from Gakul Sudanagunta. Please, let's see. You can speak now, Gakul. I think I said your name correctly, and if not, I apologize. You just need to unmute.
Thank you for that. My name's Gokul, and thank you so much for that. That's right, pretty much. My name's Gokul, and you made it right. So sorry for that. Just wanted to like put a question out there. And thank you so much for I'm really sorry. I missed the names for the speakers because I've joined late. And as we went through the recent bill, and they said yeah, there's been a 5% contribution in the European countries' economy towards the military, which UN asked for. My perspective, which I want to raise a question is towards maybe everyone's looking at the wrong side in planning towards a country's security. Well, the war's been moved from actual wars to economical like war or something that's related to biological. Like so weaponaries are not used rather than just securing your ground post. Now, if you have to like secure your countries, it has to be like uh creating a groundbreaking research studies on how you can secure yourself from like bioattacks or anything that has to do with the human evolution based on the unknown or unsecured chemical bodies. In the other end, it has to be through the people. So I have this question which says instead of concentrating through the military power that's funding towards going towards that, do the countries needs to fund their development in bio or the financial fields where they can make their economy grow. At the same time, they can guard their countries with the military power they have on hands or the UN sanctioned military powers toward the underlying countries and still gain knowledge and insights towards through the research towards the unknown biological species that's been found in recent times, which can bring the humankind for a step ahead towards a greater leap or a peace world.
Thank you, Gokul.
Thank you.
Want to go first? Dr. Bundair, do you want to go first or?
Yeah, so about this question or the question, I was thinking about the question that is in Q&A.
Do you want me to try to answer this question? I'm
Yes.
not sure I can, but I can try. I think that the world needs to fully ban biological and chemical weapons and research thereon. The problem with all of these sorts of specialty weapons is that the research to supposedly defend against them is indistinguishable from the research to create them. In the case of biological weapons, it is entirely possible that we all got COVID because of research to supposedly protect us from COVID, which created the epidemic. We need a total ban on such research, just as we need a total ban on nuclear weapons and other types of weapons. But we aren't going to get them without a ban on war, without eliminating all the weapons. This is why the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons not only requires eliminating all nuclear weapons, but requires then proceeding to eliminate all other weapons. As long as as long as small countries think they need some super weapon to defend them from your so-called conventional weapons, you're going to have a hard time banning them unless we move the world away from war to diplomacy, the rule of law, unarmed defense, etc. Can we still do scientific research? There was something in the question about that. I really, scientific research is also a two-edged sword, and it does a great deal of good and a great deal of harm. I really don't care if we do it or not, but we have to take it out of the control of the military contractors that dominate our government, our universities, our research labs, our economy. We have to redirect focus toward peaceful ends, and that means urgently ceasing to do much of what our economies do, and abandoning the childish and catastrophic competition between countries, where we must engage in more destruction than China in order to beat them. We have to get away from that. And right now we're on the wrong path. We're in the wrong direction on all of these things. And, the so-called good countries are bringing back landmines because all they have to do is scream Putin, and people will say, okay, let's blow the arms and legs off little children. That's not so bad. So we actually need to go in the direction of banning these weapons, not reinstituting them.
Yeah, that is definitely something I can agree with as far as banning nuclear weapons. And I think that when we think about research and scientific research, as Peace Economy Project, we are a group of researchers, and the thing that we need to change is our focus in how we do it, and take this, and as you said, this competition out of research, out of science. And it should be something that is not only peace-based, but community-based, such that we are working together toward the betterment of society, toward the betterment of the environment, to research that improves housing. But a lot of times when people think about research and science, the society has been militarized such that science, you think about, ooh, this cool robot that can, fly like Iron Man and save the planet by being more powerful than other robots, and even in the entertainment that we watch, the entertainment that we let our children watch regarding science and what's out there is militarized. So there needs to be a different look at what science is and what the potential of humanity is. We are better than this. Next question is from Imran. Go ahead, Imran.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you, Katrina, for putting this all together. Thank you, Peru and David. Very, very informative and excellent. My question is for everybody. So, David, you just kind of really honed in about how entrenched everything that we do is in the military industrial complex, right? And Peru, you sort of broke down what that cycle looks like in terms of, how we are entrenched. Now, given that, we've been trying to get them to even like take a cent off of the military budget for forever, right? We've been trying and trying and asking for a long time, but it has never changed. Whether Democrat or Republican, it has never changed. Rather, they get billions more every year while material conditions for humans in America and on Earth continually worsen, right? So, and then, this extends to NATO and all these things we talked about. It is so deep. Like, my question is, like, we're doing a lot of things here at Peace Economy Project, and I'm looking at Roots Action. There's a lot of good stuff, but we've been doing this for decades and nothing has changed, right? So I guess my question is, what do we actually do tangibly, especially considering that we are about peace, and I think a lot of analyses of this type of situation may take a more like Marxist or Fanonian view on how things will unfold if things are going to change for the positive. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that. Thank you.
Can I go?
Please.
Yeah. So see, Imran, there are different perspectives that we need to consider here. This is true that we are trying to do it for the decades, for the centuries, which is not going to happen very soon. But one thing that I could think about is it's the change that we want to see. We should start within. For example, if we want to think about, that was very interesting picture that David had shown. The children were pledging towards their flag, allegiance to the flag. So it was very, that photo stuck to me. Since the childhood, we are putting such thought process towards the children. And same group of children going to go ahead, grow, and they are thinking about the national security and everything. So we have to think it very philosophically to deal with these things. Unless we think about how we change the perspectives, how we think about our neighbors, our enemies, and why do we have enemies? Unless we think about these perspectives, the change is not going to be seen very soon. That's what I believe.
I'm not good at predicting the future. I have no particular skills in that regard. And I'm not sure it's of much value because we know what we have to do. We can figure out strategically what has the best chance to do it. And we can work night and day and sleep as little as possible and try to get it done. Whether we think we're mostly winning or mostly losing, it's our moral responsibility, and it's far more enjoyable than sitting around and bitching and moaning about it. It permeates everything, as Eisenhower warned in his other famous quote. Iron Man, of course, had a different story until the Pentagon got their hands on it. These movies are literally shaped by the military industrial complex, but that doesn't mean that that we don't have successes by the thousands to point to for the success dependent activists, right? I work with a group called World Beyond War, and we have local chapters winning things all the time, winning divestment from weapons by governments, by institutions, by universities, preventing the construction of planned military bases, closing existing military bases. And we have serious victories, right? We prevented carpet bombing of the entire nation of Syria when Obama was president. We prevented a bigger war on Iran than what we've just seen recently. 5 or 6 times that can be identified over recent decades. And each time gives us a stronger argument to push back against, the next upcoming demand for a war on Iran. In terms of public thought, our victories are tremendous. I think there is something to what we saw in the presentation earlier, that there's a fear of being weak on defense and so forth. but cutting military spending is actually hugely popular with the US public. Moving money from the military to environment and education and so forth is incredibly popular. And as sociopathic as you'd have to be to push for military spending as a jobs program, which many Congress members and ambassadors and presidents do, it's not just poor in comparison to education and infrastructure. It's worse than nothing. It eliminates jobs. Just not taxing that money in the first place gives you more jobs. And people understand this, and people understand conversion. During COVID, on a small scale, various military weapons plants, such as one in Bath, Maine, were quickly converted into manufacturing medical supplies to deal with COVID, exactly as everyone has always known could be done, as has been drafted in legislation for, since before I was alive. So, get involved with not just World Beyond War, but whatever local peace group has got a good chapter where you are locally, or get involved internationally with all the wonderful organizations that are out there, and push things a little bit more toward the right direction, which, it really doesn't, the fact that we haven't won yet is why we have to do it. And the notion that we're never going to win is just a claim. It's absolutely unprovable, and we have a responsibility to keep trying.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Change does not happen as quickly as people would like it. And there is when you look at progress of different issues, such as, say, gay marriage in California, there was a point where no one wanted to approve this. And then there was a bump, and then down, and then up, and then down. And then there was this tipping point that people hit and said, let's do it. So that's what we're seeing here. And that's why at Peace Economy Project, the fellowship program that we have is so important to us and so vital, because we are looking not at today, but we're looking at tomorrow and training leaders for tomorrow in order to promote a peace economy. And we're hoping that that the people that we train today can see the benefit of that and then take that benefit on as they become leaders. And that's where I think change is going to happen. It's not going to happen, definitely not with the people that we see as leaders today in Congress, but with people that we help promote and help push this mission forward. We are past the top of the hour, but I wanted to get that question that was in the Q&A tab from John Kentry here that says, there are emerging technologies for building a platform for digital democracy and a global referendum on worldwide demilitarization. Can we achieve demilitarization in the existing structure of power? I think I kind of just answered that, but.
Yes, but I can go with. So to understand this, we need to have, so since you have mentioned the enabler, which is the digital democracy platforms that are building, but we need to think about structural barriers that come in the way of this achieving. So as we see that geopolitical architecture is built on military deterrence or strategic dominance over each other, there would be a situation wherein states might fear unilateral disarmament because that will make them vulnerable because of the demilitarization. And there are military industrial complexes which are, they might resist disarmament due to the economic strategic interest that they have into the manufacturing of defense tools. Also, There was one very good article I could think about was on digital sovereignty conflicts that we could think about. Because as we countries like China or US or European Union push the competing versions of digital governance, it is very harder to get through the centralized or platform that we can achieve the demilitarization through. But of course, there are possibilities, but there are barriers as well.
I think there are huge advantages to much of the structure that's been built up internationally over the past number of decades. But the key tweak would be taking away the veto from 5 of the worst warmongers in the world. If you're going to create an institution like the UN Security Council to eliminate war, and then you're going to give the worst offenders the power to block, single-handedly block the entire rest of the world, as the United States does time and again on wars in Palestine and elsewhere. You're just, tying 2 hands behind your back. We need to have equality, democracy internationally. And as long as people are afraid of foreigners, we have to have something instead of military so-called defense. And to have unarmed civilian defense, you would have to have people learn what unarmed civilian defense is, and you would have to have governments willing to have their own people empowered to resist their own abuses, because the evidence is clear that people can learn to successfully resist foreign occupations without violence. The problem is that they can then resist abuses by their own government, and no government wants that. So you'd have to first have actual self-governance, actual democracy, rather than democracy as a slogan you wave when you're launching the bombs. So if we could get to actual democracy, if we could get to unarmed defense, and if we could get to actual democracy internationally, we do have a lot of useful things in place. They just need key adjustments.
Did that answer your question, John? I'm guessing it did.
It must have.
And so thank you again to our speakers and to our partner World Beyond War, and to each of you for coming in tonight with such wonderful questions. We hope that tonight has sparked your imagination and strengthened your resolve to pursue peace, not just as the absence of war, but as the presence of justice, care, and community. Please connect with our organizations, support our campaigns, and help us spread this message far and wide. Let's make peace more powerful than war. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.